Good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to the audience here. My name is Manish, and I would like to welcome you all to the DoBig webinar session on cybersecurity services, hosted by Tata Tele Business Services in association with Frost and Sullivan as a knowledge partner. I will be the moderator for the entire session, and we have a very interesting agenda for today. Keeping in mind the need to build an inclusive security environment that focuses on technology, people, and processes, this webinar takes a 360-degree view of the security services market from a customer perspective, highlighting the important factors. We believe the session would benefit to align your security priorities and move towards building a secure digital landscape. So thank you all for taking out time from your schedule. And I would like to introduce the speaker for today's session. We have Mr. Rajarshi Dhar, who is the lead analyst from Frost and Sullivan and is a subject matter expert for the cybersecurity practice. Within the flow of the entire webinar, we will put in two poll questions where we would like to engage with you and understand your thoughts on the service. Finally, at the end, we would like to open the forum for a Q&A session. Without taking more time, let me welcome Mr. Rajarshi Dhar. Over to you, Raj.
Thank you, Manish, for the quick introduction. First, let me welcome you all to the DoBig webinar session. And I should thank you for taking out time from a busy schedule. Before I proceed, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Rajarshi Dhar, and I'm part of the ICT team at Frost & Sullivan, and I take care of cybersecurity practice for India. I'm associated with Frost & Sullivan with close to 4 years now, and today I shall present to you about managed security service. As Manish rightly said, by the end of the session, you would have an idea about managed security services, MSS. Why should you use MSS? What benefits does it hold to you? How can you choose a service provider? And what should you look for in the near future? So before we move ahead and discuss about the service, let's look into some interesting facts and figures by setting the context right. So if we look into this slide talks about digitalization. 1 year from now, 2020, the internet penetration is going to wrap up the most of the country. 730 million internet users we are likely to have, and 75% of new users are going to be from rural India. Yes, you heard me right. That's the rural India, which had limited access to the best of the basic necessities. 75% of that internet users are going to come from rural India. Mobile content or mobile video content is going to grow at a CAGR of 83% till 2020. And that mobile thing is going to be one of the major arms that consumers are going to use while accessing web or go into the front of digitalization. When you talk about the consumers front, if you look into the shopping industry, 175 million online shoppers we expect by 2020. So that's a huge number, right? 175 million, that's the number we are talking about. 70% e-commerce transactions to be done through mobile. And this would be possible because of the penetration of mobile. So mobile is going to be one of the important factors. Transaction of travel. So for example, if you want to book a hotel or get your flight tickets done, you would, or most people would go online and book their tickets. So 50% travel transactions will happen through online. So if you see the last slide, we talked about one more main thing is mobile. So mobile is going to be that weapon, or that would actually be that connector that will connect the consumer to the data. So this slide talks about that 67% of Indian population would be mobile users by 2022. So I'm talking about 3 years from now. The concept of connected world, connected devices, that's going to emerge. So if I have to understand the entire mobile story, there are two things to it. One is the consumer and it's the business. And in this slide, we have tried to compare both. So the consumer business in 2017 grew by 95%. Likewise, the business segment grew, mobile data grew by 92%. In the next 3 years, or from 2017 to 2019, the last 2 years and the next 3 years, 5 years, the CAGR growth rate in the consumer segment was 56% of it, and again 54% was in the business segment. In terms of volumes of data use, 1.1 exabytes per month use of data, that happened in 2017, and that's going to increase 9-folds in 2022. So it's a similar trend that we can see in the business segment as well. In terms of mobile applications, mobile data, video will be 77% of India's mobile data traffic by 2022, compared to 52% at the end of 2017. So there's a huge splurge in the mobile data, and thanks to cheap data plans available today in the Indian market. No wonders why we have such huge consumption of data today, and most of this data is on the video front. Mobile video traffic is again going to grow 13.7-fold, close to 14-fold you can talk about, from 2017 to 2022. And that's again a huge volume. In terms of the devices, of the connected device, smart devices, 87.8 million new devices and connections were added in 2017. In terms of the number of smart devices, it grew 36% in 2017, and the number reached to over 260 million. So there's certainly a lot of consumption of data. There's a lot of endpoints getting connected, and again, there's free flow of data, or that's going to happen over the period of time. Now, there is one challenge that's really going to affect all, and that's going to really worry the CIOs and CISOs. So this slide talks about the different type of security attacks that happened in India over the last 1 to 2 years' time. Few of these attacks you may have heard about, right? For example, the Cosmos Bank attack that happened in August 2018, where this bank lost 94 crore rupees, and because of a server attack that happened, it got hacked. Similar kind of attack happened on a Canara Bank ATM server in Kolkata in 2018 July. Very similar kind of attack. Overall, from January 2018 to November 2018, there were close to 16,000 Indian websites that got hacked. Ransomware attack of late became so common, and one of the recent ones happened in May 2019 when the Andhra Pradesh and Telangana power utility websites got attacked. Recently, one of the IT service provider or system integrator got a phishing attack into its systems. So in a nutshell, there is a lot of attacks that's happening on a daily basis. Few names we hear on, but few we don't understand, because few of them don't get recorded as well or detected as well. So we as a country, we do see that there is, we are not in a very good situation in terms of the facts or the figures that really shows up for a cybersecurity breach. India is the largest number of is the country with the largest number of personal breaches in 2018. We ranked third in cyber attacks through social media. So these are stunning numbers, which will actually worry anyone. I would like your attention to the last point. $104,000. That's an average economic cost of cyber attacks in India across organizations. So that's a big number. So everybody is sick. So if you see what we understand from this, that a lot of attacks happening every time, that's a serious concern we should all address. But why are we actually seeing this bunch or this escalated growth of cyber attacks in the recent past? So we have to understand the changing threat landscape that we are facing today. So if we look till 2013, there were attacks which are known to us. This means the attacks, we knew how to protect our systems from these attacks because we had the signatures. We knew how these functioned, how these attacks used to happen. So till 2016, we used to have the signature-based or known attacks, which were typically the malware attacks or the Trojan virus attacks. So those were the key ones. After that, from 2013, the shift started to be very much visible. We had attacks on the web front, typically the DDoS attack or the WAF attacks that we had. We had phishing attacks. Spear phishing is one of the very common attacks that comes through over the email. We have the spywares, and again, then we had the APTs. There were attacks which actually started targeting specific systems. So that really came up in 2016. So the Swift attack, if you can remember, there was one of the attacks that rocked the entire world. We had the Bank of Bangladesh attack in 2016, where the Swift account got hacked. There's something called the man in the middle attack, where this is an attack where enterprises doesn't know there's a third person sitting in between the conversation between you and the second part. So this is a man in the middle attack. There were bots, zero-day attacks, and that's really has been worrying enterprises too. Of late, so if you ask me, what kind of threats do we see in the future, 2019 and beyond? So my perspective would be like, there's going to be the use of 5G networks. Everybody's talking about 5G, right? And everybody's talking about IT. So both these things, IoT and 5G, this is going to open opportunities for hackers, and that's going to worry each one of us. Because while we understand that 5G is going to give a lot of benefit or advantage, but we have to understand these are easy spots that hackers could target. So we have to be very sure that how do we tackle this. Now, there are attacks which are actually being targeted to critical infrastructure, the SCADA systems that get targeted, power plants, and our mobile phones. These are the easiest way a hacker can get into. So if you can recall the second slide or the third slide that I talked about, where I had put in the list of attacks that happened over the last 2 years, you will find most of the attacks happened in the IT, ITS, BFSI, and the government vertical. So these are the traditional industry verticals where you have a lot of these attacks. Now there are the emerging industry verticals, for example, healthcare, manufacturing, and retail. So the healthcare, India is becoming one of the low-cost healthcare destinations in the world. We are getting that recognition, right? And a lot of these companies, be it the insurance providers, be it the hospitals, they are coming and investing in India. The Department of Public Health, they are also improving the way healthcare has been delivered. And there's a lot of digitalization that's happening. So we have to make sure that it doesn't get affected. Second, manufacturing. Make in India has been so far been a very good journey for us as a country, right? And a lot of these international companies have set up their manufacturing units, but what's really challenging them is the cyber threats that's affecting the industrial control systems, the SCADA systems, the industrial IoTs, or the automations that's involved in those factories. In retail, let me bifurcate this retail. Retail will have two segments to it. One is the online segment, which we call it as the e-commerce. And again, there's something on the traditional brick and mortar systems, right? Where you go to a system and actually pay to the customer, pay at the shop. So use POS machines, point of sales machines, right? But what if it gets hacked? There is a chance to get hacked. And you would never know actually that it got hacked. And you will suddenly see that some amount of money is siphoned from your account because you have no clue that POS, point of sale systems, could be hacked as well or could be attacked. Then you have these e-commerce websites through which you do a lot of transactions. So all of us in some point in time have done some kind of e-shopping, right? And we have used our credit card, debit cards for doing transaction. What if those information get leaked? What else gets hacked? So these are attacks that are actually happening across and are really worrying each one of us. Now, if you see the security perspective in the large enterprises, I would rather say that it's somehow better than what's there in the small enterprises or the SMBs. They have that capability to invest more on high value security products because they are financially strong. They have somehow put in dedicated resources. So they would have a chief information security officer, they would have a CIO, they would all have a digital officer. So all of them work together to give a better security, create a better security posture. But in terms of an SMB, that you don't get that. You don't have that. They don't have that freedom to invest so much in security. One thing that's really is a myth for SMBs is the fact that they believe they are not vulnerable to attacks, which is a myth. And data suggests that SMBs are the worst affected by cybersecurity breaches. And if you ask that what are the challenges, the top concerns that SMBs deal with, I would say these are the 8 of them. These are the operational challenges, the technical challenges you can see. This is the technical front, right? One is that you don't have the right set of environment to actually train your employees. So that's very important. You can't spend thousands or millions to train your employees because of obvious reasons. You don't have that money power to do that, right? Then you have that you have, for example, you may have invested on security. You may have put in the tools, security tools from, for example, a firewall, but may not be it's the right product. What if it's still a right product, but it may not be up to date? You don't have the patches to it. What do you do with it? SMBs, most of them don't have a business continuity, disaster recovery, or contingency plan. What if a threat hits me and a breach is done? How do I come out from there? Access management, identity and access management is an area of concern for most of the small businesses. We don't have visibility, who is getting into the network, who is coming out, what time he's logging in, what data is accessing, we have no visibility. So that's one concern. Insecure Wi-Fi's. A lot of these security attacks come from the network, and those Wi-Fi networks are being targeted. Limited focus on web security. You don't have a web application firewall to protect. Still, if you have, again, may not be up to date, and there could be cases of data loss for your enterprise. Now, during our conversation with most of the CIOs and CTOs, or with the CISOs as well, these are the 5 areas or the challenges that we understand from them. They say we don't have the rights access to the latest security tools and techniques, and we don't know what are the latest tools that's coming to the market, because the cybersecurity world is changing so fast. Products have been developed for today's security landscape, threat landscape, and enterprises, most of these small businesses, or again to a certain extent to the large enterprises as well, they don't have any clue what are the new products in the market. How can they protect it? Budget is one concern for any enterprise. With the small, it's pretty much evident that its security budget is a concern. For large, it's still somehow they manage it. Unavailability of in-house skilled resources. They don't have the right set of people to actually identify a threat and do a mitigation to it. They don't know how to remediate it. So these are areas of concern for them. First, you don't get the right people, and hiring a person is too costly in this. Lack of proactive threat detection. Most of these attacks, most of the security features these enterprises have are reactive. This means once the security breaches happen, then only they react. But what they don't do proactively, as in they don't go upfront and say, okay, let me be prepared for attack. So that they are not doing. There's no proactive approach to it. It's a reactive approach. So the obvious question to me would be like, okay, then what's the solution, right? So I would say one of the best options an enterprise or an SMB can figure out is managed security service. They can reach out to the provider, whom we call it the managed security service provider, to manage his enterprise's IT security things. He can provide it for you. So how do we at Frost & Sullivan define managed security service? So what is it? So managed security service is actually a managed model of security service delivery, where an enterprise completely outsources its management and monitoring of security to a third party. This means the managed security service provider does complete monitoring as well as managing on a daily affair the security perspective of the enterprise. Now, it's a very large concept, the managed security service. So what we have done for the ease of understanding, we have bucketed into 4 larger buckets. One is we call it as a security assessment, asset management and monitoring. So this is typically the traditional security services, which includes the managed firewall, managed IDS, IPS, managed DDoS, log analytics. So these are the traditional ones. Then you have the threat intelligence part of it, so which we call is the TRIDR, which includes compromise assessment, ICS health check, security program assessments. So these are the next gen. So if you have heard of something called managed detection and response, MDR, so it's a very common term these days, people are using it. So it's a part of the threat intelligence. Then you have the third bucket, which is the risk and compliance management, which is RCM. And again, the fourth one is the emerging and the advanced MSS, which includes managed IAM, managed endpoint, mobile endpoint, managed DLP. So why does it make sense for small businesses to partner with an MSSP? So an MSSP has a pool of talent, trained and skilled resources, which we call as threat hunters. They hunt for threats, right? And they know how to deal with it. And since MSSP model works on a no capital investment framework, where the enterprise don't have to invest more on capital on acquiring security tools and techniques, right? It is a managed model, so it really makes sense for a small business to to partner with the MSSP. However, the MSSP gives you an access or empowers the enterprise with the latest security tools. So that's actually it's a big benefit that you get. They know how to build a proactive security approach, and that is done through a 24/7 security monitoring, which is very important in today's world. You can't leave your system, IT infrastructure, being not monitored for a minute as well, because you don't know when it's coming, and that monitoring has to be very vigilant. So we have talked about the managed security service, right? But it includes various other modules within the service. So this slide is typically a bell curve which talks about the product life cycle. So if you see in the bottom on the horizontal x-axis, you will see 4 stages to it. One is the development stage, growth stage, maturity, and decline stage. Any product that's been introduced comes through this or goes through this cycle. So, for example, if I have to interpret this slide, if you see on the maturity stage, there are 4 services that's available, which is the managed firewall, UTM, or NGFW. Then you have the managed DDoS, managed IDS, IPS, and that event collection. These are mature products. These have reached a very high level of maturity. There are a lot of products, a lot of innovation being done over here. So these have really been taken well in the market, and these generate a lot of value to the customer. So these have reached the maturity stage, and is a fundamental pillar for any enterprise, these 4 elements. But if you see if I go to the other part of the curve, which is the development of the growth phase, so you will have ICS health check, RRA. I talked about MDR, right? Then you have the RCM and IRR. So these are emerging services. A lot of these large enterprises / mid-market companies, they are investing on this. There is a trend on investment on that. Now, an MSS in today's aspect has to actually involve a framework. So this is actually a security kaleidoscope that we call it, and we can call it a factor of 4 as well. So every element is built up on 4 things. So if you see on the left-hand side of the screen, this is the kaleidoscope I am referring to. So it has security pillars, security capability, protection for, and enrichment. So what is security pillars? So security pillars are the basic building blocks of a security architecture, right? And this includes the network, this includes the web, endpoint, and data security. And what is the capability these products have to bring in? These products have to bring in threat identification, prevention, response, and recovery. Recovery in the sense like an attack has happened, how do I get out from the attack very fast? Within minutes, I have to be up. I can't let my system go down for hours, right? Now the protection, whom do you protect? You have to protect the entire enterprise. And what is it? It's cloud, data center, remote sites, endpoint, mobile, and IoT. These are all the stakes that needs to be protected. How do you do that? And that's done through product updates. Regular patch management has to be done. Implemented security policy, which is tested. You should have a governance, risk, and compliance, which adheres to that. And again, this should be threat intelligence. So these are few things that needs to be taken care of. So how should enterprises do this? And enterprises can do this by re-strategizing their security principles, which is by creating a dialogue which is around people, process, and technology. They should build a security framework which is inclusive. I talked about the security pillars. That is the inclusiveness I'm talking about. Having network security, web security, endpoint security, and data security. Taking in a proactive approach to threat mitigation, right? That identification to mitigation, that's very important. You have to know how to prevent and then know how to, okay, the conversation has to happen from detection, prevention, response, mitigation, and prediction. You have to predict as well when a security breach is going to happen. Finally, you have to partner with the right security service provider who could be a partner with you for the long-term journey. With this, I come to the first poll question to you. I would now request Manish to administer this poll for our audience. Manish, if you can do that. Let me read out the questions for you. The poll is open. What are the key challenges that you face in dealing with security? Is it limited access to latest security tools and techniques? Is it constrained security budgets, unavailability in-house skilled resources, or is it lack of dedicated security planning and intel strategy? I can see people voting in. I'd request people to vote in for people who haven't done it. Let me give you 30 seconds more. I could see voting in coming in for all segments. Okay, scores are fluctuating. So what are the key challenges that you face in dealing with security? Is it limited access to security tools and techniques? Is it constrained security budgets? Is it unavailability of in-house skilled resources? Or is it lack of dedicated security planning and internal strategy? I would wait for 10 more seconds. I hope most of you have put in your votes. Let me wait 5 more seconds before I close it. Okay, done. Manish, if you can close the votes. Oh, here it is. So I can see lack of dedicated security planning and internal strategy is the biggest concern for people. Okay, that's a very good insight. So this gives me the fact that people are thinking big, right? You understand the importance of having a plan in place, a strategy in place, followed by constrained security budgets. Yes, I definitely agree that security budget, this has been a challenge for most enterprises. Through all my conversations that I had with CIOs and CISOs, this has come out pretty strong. 15% limited access to latest security tools. That's one thing. And finally, unavailability of in-house skilled resources. Okay. Thank you so much. So let me just continue with my presentation. Moving on. So we talked about the 4 things, right? Network, endpoint, data, and overall the application layer, right? Now let me put the focus more on 2 key things of the security pillars, which is the network and the web, right? And why is it important, and how can enterprises use various security products to improve their security posture, which is on the network and the web. So this is the first product let us look into. This is the UTM, which stands for Unified Threat Management. So what is an UTM? UTM is a type of security appliance It is typically a box. Okay, it helps mitigate threats, identify threats. Okay, and then it helps to stop an attack, which is typically a malware attack or could be an advanced threat. The best part of this product is that it has integrated security products. So a lot of this siloed security features are actually integrated into this product. So you get a firewall capability, you get a antivirus capability. This product can identify and can provide a visibility into the network. It does web and content filtering, email filtering. It creates identity awareness. Again, it provides IDS, IPS. Few of the vendors offers this with additional features. So for example, few of the vendors may have a WAF or web application firewall data loss prevention feature inbuilt with this product. Now, since this product is been delivered from the cloud or could be managed in-house, so this gives a very good value proposition for enterprises using a managed unified threat management service. The next product let us look into is our DDoS mitigation product. So this is actually a service, again, similar to the managed UTM, is delivered as a service, okay, and could be delivered from the cloud or could be managed on-premise as well for the customer. So what is a DDoS solution? A DDoS solution is actually a security solution which helps protect the web, which is typically the layer 7 of the OSI layer, right? It holds to protect that. So it is one of the important basic features or basic security tools that most enterprises go for. So what are the capabilities does it have? It has that attack detection. It knows how to stop behavior-based traffic. So it understands traffic behavior and then stops any kind of abnormalities in the traffic, if you say. So a volumetric attacks get stopped. A DDoS attack is typically a volumetric attack where a lot of bad traffic comes into a network and you need to stop it, right? Which is on volumes. So this brings down your service. So a DDoS mitigation solution knows how to stop or clean that traffic which is not required. The best part of this solution is that it integrates well with an UTM device as well as a WAF and an IDS, IPS or an ADC. And it knows how to quarantine bad traffic and lets pass the clean traffic go through. The third service that let us look into is the secure VPN service. So VPN service refers to a secured way of connecting devices and transmitting data over the network, irrespective of the fact wherever you're located, which device you're connecting from, and it gives data privacy. And since it is service-based model, it is also cost-effective. It provides business partner customers restricted access by thereby improving security, right? And this converts public cloud networks into private cloud networks and hence removes the concern around security. So it's one of the secured way of connecting to the public cloud where security is one of the threats or one of the concerns for most enterprises using a cloud service, right? Well, these are the three products that we looked into, right? Let me just talk about a few of the practical use cases that enterprises have actually benefited from by using this service. The first product that we can look into, or the first service, since it is delivered as a service, is the UTM. So this is about a consumer electronics manufacturer who is present across multiple Indian cities. This manufacturer already had UTM devices, and it faced the challenge of managing it because of the uniqueness of each network the UTM device was placed into. So what it wanted was it wanted a third party or a managed provider to do that management and monitoring for that for the enterprise, for the company. So it reached out to an MSSP who provided remote management and monitoring of the UTM devices and implemented standard operating procedures, SOPs. The benefit what they got was that the client was on a regular basis able to access daily reports on the health of the ATM devices and run analysis on the operational data. As an outcome, now the enterprise has a centrally managed monitoring service. It knows what's happening into the network for any of the offices that the company has, and what's happening in any one. So for example, I want to know what's happening in the network of, for example, in Delhi, I would get to know what's happening in the same way I want to know what's happening in Mumbai, I get to know. So that's the benefit that it got. The second use case let me talk about is the managed DDoS. It's about a North India-based financial services company, a next generation company who was into retail and institutional sales as well as doing wealth management for customers. Now, since it is a next generation company, it has a very strong web presence. However, the company feared that there may be a DDoS attack on its network, right? Because of the various news that's coming in, and since DDoS is one of the most common type of attacks that enterprises deal with, the company really feared about it. So what it did, it reached out to a managed security service provider, and the service provider offered DDoS detection and mitigation service for all IP traffic, and it was giving 24/7 real-time monitoring. Now that company had network visibility, security visibility that it had, network was available all time. And the benefit was like high availability of service at no capital expenditure. The company didn't spend anything on the on-premise. It was everything hosted from the cloud and managed from a service provider, right? So that was one of the benefits that the DDoS managed DDoS service brought in for the customer. And till date, the company reported no untoward incident towards the DDoS attack. The third example is of an Indian pharmaceutical company, which has offices in tier 1 and tier 2 cities of the country. And the company invested heavily on mobile, on employee mobility, BYOD, and cloud. But one challenge this company was facing was like, it wasn't sure how secure is its communication with branch offices, and is there any kind of data leakage. So what it did was it reached out to a service provider to help with secured VPN connections. And the secured VPN connections improved flexibility and provided secured connections by encrypting data over the network. So any data that's flowing into the networks was now encrypted. And as a result, the company was able to leverage the benefits of seamless connectivity without compromising on any security. So in a nutshell, if you'd ask me, what are the top 5 benefits of partnering with a managed security service provider or having MSS model? So 5 of them. The first one, optimal cost. It comes at lower TCO, and since it's an OpEx-based model, you don't have to spend much on it. It doesn't need spending on doing capital expenditure. So that's one large benefit. Second one benefit is what I understand is like since it's a hosted on the managed model, it's not deployed on premise, it's managed on the cloud. So that's again a very big benefit. It gives a visibility. A managed security service provider has a better visibility into a network and can provide threat analysis and can provide proactive threat intelligence. I have been focusing on proactive threat intelligence multiple times, right? So that is one of the key benefits that you get over here. Most of these MSSPs actually provide a customer tailored SLA. That is measurable. So that's another benefit. And again, 24/7 monitoring. With this, I come to the next section with the obvious question: whom should you partner with, and how should you select a partner? Now, in the MSS world, you will see a lot of providers. You have the OEMs, the security vendors, then you have the system integrators, you have the data center providers, and the telcos. But there are certain reasons why a customer should or can opt for a telecom service provider. Now, if you look into the core competency of a telecom service provider, it's his network. He knows how to manage his network because he has visibility in his network. And most of this threats or attacks happen through the network. So that is one of the key areas. That is one of the things. In network being the prime entry point for any threats, it's very important that a telecom service provider be able to guard it. Most of the telcos have a partnership with the best in the world OEMs, and this partnership is actually helps build that capability of security. Now, most of these telcos again gives a concept of integrated SLA, where they integrate the core network services with the security services. So that's again one important benefit of that. But how do you actually select, or what are the factors you should look at while selecting a service provider? Or so here are the 7 of them. You should look at a provider who has a technology capability, who has a reputation in the India market, who's financially stable, who agrees to provide a customer-friendly SLA. So, for example, you want to tweak it, you want to tailor it as per the requirement, a provider should be able to do that for you. And again, that company should have, or that provider should have, an access to the best skilled resource and domain experts. If you are an SMB, it's always preferred that you reach out to a provider who is giving you, who has a very strong SMB focus and can provide you the best value cost proposition. So these are the few things that you should look into while selecting a service provider. With that, let me come into the second poll question of the day. Manish, I would request you to again administer this poll for the audience. If you could do that, that would be great. Let me read the question for you. According to you, what is the most important factor for choosing a managed security service provider? Is it the technology capability of the service provider? A provider with a team of skilled resources? Is it security provider with the SMB focus? Or an MSSP with access to advanced technologies? Or the last one, would you look to have a provider who agrees to a customer-friendly SLA? I can see votes coming in. Okay. Let me wait for 30 more seconds before I close this poll. Okay, a lot of votes coming in. It's now spread across 3 options. I can see a lot of them, a lot of people voting in for it. Still, few of them are remaining to vote. I request them to please cast your vote on the poll. Let me wait for 10 more seconds. Okay, let me wait for 5 more seconds before people stop voting. Okay, Manish, if you can close the votes. Thank you so much, everyone, for voting. Okay, here's the results. Okay, 58% of the people in the audience believe that MSSP with an access to advanced technology would be the most important factor to choose a security provider. Absolutely, that's a very important factor, because we have been talking about the next generation security tools, and it's high time that enterprises actually invest on that. Followed by, I could see that 33% of the audience believes that provider who agrees to give a customer-friendly SLA is one of the key important factors. Okay, so that is also very important, because every enterprise is unique, and every enterprise should actually partner with the provider who can do that for you. So thank you so much for the polls. Let me continue with the concluding part of this presentation. Okay, moving on. So we have till now understood, okay, we started with what is digitalization, what are the benefits out of this, and where it's going to go head for. Then we talked about security challenges or the type of attacks that's happening. Then we talked about why to partner with the MSSP. Then we talked about the various products within MSSP, the key ones of it. And then we had this understanding of case studies. Now, finally, so where should we look into in the next 2 to 3 years' time in the managed security service? So every enterprise is unique, and everybody is in some part of the maturity curve within the bell curve that we talk about, right? The hype cycle. But one thing, enterprises, whichever position you are there in the maturity curve, you should have the focus on four key things. One is detection, second is prevention, then response and remediate. So you need to know how to detect an attack, you need to know how to prevent an attack, you should know how to respond to an attack, and finally should get to know how to remediate an attack. And that could be done only through the use of proactive threat intelligence. You should know through the use of intelligence factors. You can't use traditional tools. You have to be forward looking. You leverage the benefits of next generation tools. You should leverage most of security automation. So that's very important. You should talk about security analytics, behavior analysis, contextual awareness. Endpoint, again, we talked about mobile being the soft launchpad for most of the attacks, right? So endpoint detection and response is going to be very important. Then you should have fraud detection, response, and remediation capability. Finally, you should have a SOC built in who has an improved intrusion detection, monitoring, incident response, red teaming. So these are next generation services. You should actually think of having it within an enterprise. This will help you build that capability. And a managed security service provider is one of the best options that you could actually opt for. So in a nutshell, to summarize, what are the 5 things that we could draw from this webinar session? Managed security service is the fastest growing segment within the entire security portfolio. So whether it's network, endpoint, since it's a managed model, the managed security service market is the fastest growing. No other market is growing as fast as this one is. Network is prime. You have to understand the fact that the major challenge or the major attacks happen through the network, and you should put in protection on the network. SMBs are highly vulnerable to cyber attacks. It's not that the large enterprises are only targeted. No, that's not the case. SMBs are as well. And if you realize that fact, you can build that security posture better. So SMBs are highly vulnerable to cyber attacks. Enterprises should try to leverage the expertise that MSSPs bring to the table. So it's always better to partner with a service provider who can manage the security for you. You don't have to deal with it on every day because it comes at a cost, right? Managing in-house team, hiring people, getting the right resources, it's a hectic task. So why not partner with a provider who can help you in the journey, into the entire journey, who could be a partner for you in the transformation story. Again, finally, the next wave of security capabilities would be on proactive threat detection, which would use the next generation techniques. This would use the artificial intelligence one, the machine learning. This would have cognitive intelligence. This would have contextual intelligence. Again, everything. So these are the next generation products and processes that I'm talking about. With this, I come to the end of this presentation. However, I would now like to open this forum for question and answer session, and it requests audience to please fill in your questions that they would like me to answer. So please fill in your questions to it and let me answer a few of your questions. I'd request the audience to please fill in the questions if they have any. Okay, here you go. So I get the first question of the day. I have 8 active workstations at my BPO, and at any given point of time, there are about 17 to 18 units in all senior management. Do you think virtual UTMs or DDoS solution is useful for me? Absolutely. To answer this question, I would say that it can be. So whatever be the number of active workstations you have, whatever the number of units you have, what is the severity of it, and UTM is an excellent solution or the DDoS is an excellent solution. So it doesn't depend on the number of endpoints you want to protect or how is the network architectured for you. So it's an excellent use case for anything. So it's a very good solution you could actually opt for, and it's worth investing or partnering with the MSSP to invest on a virtual UTM or a DDoS solution. Okay, the second question. I don't want to be in the same situation as database leaks from some organizations. What should I go in for? Okay, very good question. As in, nobody wants a data leakage to happen, right, in your enterprise. So where should you go? So depending on the enterprise, depending on the enterprise architecture that's there in your company, it's always recommended that you reach out to a service provider. And as I told you, if you're focused, and since most of the attacks happen on the network, and since telco's forte remains on the network, it's always better, or it is recommended again, to partner with a managed security service provider who is a telco in that case, if your focus is on the network. So that's a very good option that you can look for. The third question I have for the day, what about antivirus softwares? Do they fall short of protecting my business? I can just take a McAfee and that will give equal protection. Well, these products are excellent products. However, since a managed security service provider actually has a very good partnership with any of these or most of these security vendors, it gives you that leverage that since these MSSPs know how to manage it, since they have 24/7 monitoring, so since they have patch management regularly done, so you don't have to care. So if you have an in-house team or if you have deployed on-prem and you're managing it yourself, there may be a chance where you can miss out on an important patch or a notification or an update. But a managed security service provider will never ever miss that. It's because they are doing it daily and they know how to do that. So it's always recommended that you actually partner with the service provider, managed security service provider, who actually can have regular updates, and most of them do that. So it's a very good option. Okay, the fourth question. If any security organization have its own internet network, is there a chance of malware attacks? Okay, let me read the question again for you. If any security organization have its own internet network, is there a chance there of a malware attack? See, malware attacks only will happen when it gets detected, right? So if it's not gets detected, so it will definitely be a challenge, right? So the detection is very important, and depending on the type of attack it is, right? So that a security company will have that visibility. So it's always you don't have a yes or no answer to it, but again, it depends on case to case. Okay, the fifth question, let me take this for you. Do security solutions cover all device types, laptops, tablets, and mobile phone? Which ones? Okay, yes, security solutions. So if you are looking for an endpoint solution, I believe you're talking about an endpoint security tool. So if you're looking for an endpoint security tool, then in that case, it will take care of all the security needs, whichever you have. So be it a laptop, be it a tablet, or a mobile phone, doesn't matter. But you have, again, specific solutions for it. So a specific endpoint security tool may have a solution for only for a laptop, only for a mobile phone, only for a desktop. So these you will get specific solutions for each of them. But everything could be covered. So whatever endpoint you're using, it can be protected. Okay. Last question, let me take it. What is your view on how cybersecurity solutions will evolve going forward? Okay, so I had a slide on this in my presentation where I talked about that the next generation security threats would largely be will be driven by intelligence. So most of the hackers have become intelligent. They know how to trick your systems. So their attacks. There's something called artificial intelligence weaponization. This means we think they will actually hack your security product and whom you believe. It's like hacking the police, right? It's something like this concept. So that is one thing. So I believe that the next generation security solutions will be based on artificial intelligence, AI, ML, which is largely intelligence based. So the traditional signature based or point solutions may not work in this case, in several cases where the attack is intelligent. Okay. For the interest of time, uh, I would, uh, for the interest of time, let me conclude this Q&A session here, and then request the audience to fill in with questions. So if you have any queries, you can reach out to the email address as mentioned here, or can dial in the number 1-800 number that's on the screen. Thank you so much. Over to you, Manish.
Thanks a lot, Raj. It was really interesting to know how enterprises can address few of their security challenges with managed security services. I hope the session was useful, and to know more about how Tata Tele Business Services can help you on improving your security posture, please reach out to us on the details shared. Thanks a lot once again. Have a great day.